Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am going to do a little page in my Life Crafted album and I'm doing something a bit different and I'm playing along with the Sunday sketch on Citrus Twist's blog. So it very quickly showed you the little sketch that I'm working with there. If you want to check that out for yourself, I will leave the link to the blog post down in the description box. Now, I was super happy when I saw this sketch came up because it really reminded me of one of my favorite techniques of last year and one I'm keen to continue repeating as often as possible because it uses up so many of these little scraps and you can see that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So the sketch has the little strips of paper going from about halfway down the page to the bottom. Because I'm working in a Life Crafted album rather than kind of a 12 by 12 page, I'm going to adapt the sketch just a little bit and that I'm creating just a strip of strips across the sort of bottom third of the page. They're not going to hit the bottom of my base pages here. Those are 5 by 8¼ inches. So I'm just lifting them off the bottom of the page just a little bit. But basically all I'm doing is using as many of those little scrappy pieces from the 6 by 8 Sweet Story pad as I can. This is my favorite way to kind of use these tiny little scraps, and is one of the reasons that I keep them because you can actually make something really fun with them even if they're tiny little pieces like this. So when it's a favorite collection like this one, I definitely keep all of these little bits so I can do just this particular thing. Now the sketch actually has a strip of pattern paper or some sort of paper, top and bottom, stitched on to the layout. I'm not actually going to do that. This strip of papers across here, plus my photos, plus my title, it's going to end up being pretty large for the page, and I don't want to overwhelm that page with any extra bits top and bottom. I don't want to make it feel too heavy, so I'm just going to leave that part of the sketch off. And the thing I love about sketches is you can do whatever you like with them. So if something doesn't suit or you don't have a particular thing, just feel free to leave it off. Work with what you've got and make the sketch work for you. That's the whole point of it. So it's just a base, a jumping off point. So if you need to change things to suit, go ahead and do it. Now it just takes me a little bit of time to balance out the colors and the patterns. I want to make sure that there's a little bit of each pattern on both sides of the page. Sometimes I'm using 2 pieces, sometimes I'm using 3. If I'm using 3, I tend to make those pieces a little bit smaller just to balance out a little bit. And as well as all of those peaches and pinks, I'm making sure to add in a couple of other colors. So I've got this kind of sagey green and that kind of almost khaki yellow color, just to stop it becoming too overtly pink and sweet. It gives a nice balance to the colors. Now I'm getting everything kind of placed where I want. I'm not adding super amount of adhesive because I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and just go a little bit crazy really with the stitching to adhere all of those strips down. So I do end up getting the stitching from the sketch into my layout, just not in exactly the same way as it is on the sketch. And again, speaking of things not on the sketch has a bunch of labels all over it. So little clusters of labels in amongst the photos. I don't really have labels to use, but I do have this pack of sort of tag die cuts. So I'm just going to substitute those out for these. So I'm going to go through them. And obviously all of these tags and tickets are all pretty large for my very small page, and so I am going to cut down quite a few of them just to cut out little sentiment pieces that I want to use and kind of end up making my own like little tiny word strips. So that's basically what I'm using instead of labels, and I am vaguely placing them where they are on the sketch, just not necessarily in exactly the same place. And as I go to adhere them down, I'll end up shifting them and moving them around anyway. But at least as I'm going, if I can place them down, I can see how many I might need. Now, this is definitely not part of the sketch, but I did see this really fun XOXO die cut as I was just sort of happening to go through the pack. And I decided it was too cute not to use, so I had to use it. I'm going to make that part of the kind of title cluster at the top, which again is a little bit different from the sketch. The sketch has a very kind of small cluster at the top. Mine is going to end up being a whole lot larger because of that die cut. But it was perfect for the page. I had to use it, so I'm just going to alter the sketch again a little bit just to suit me. So again, that's another reason why I'm not adding those strips top and bottom, because I've got my large strip of papers across the middle of my page, and then I also have this kind of very large title. It gives the page enough balance without adding anything at top and bottom. Now I'm ready to kind of start adhering stuff down. If you know me at all, you know I don't tend to kind of mess around for too long, otherwise I'll be there forever. So I'm just going to commit to some of these things. What I have done though is just lifted my photos off the page a little bit with some craft foam, just to kind of help them stand out just a little bit from that kind of busy background. It adds just a really nice kind of dimension to it. It's about being like super bulky, but these are one of the things that I love about working in these albums. I'm not afraid to add a little bit of dimension in here every now and then. So I'm adding just a couple of these pieces directly onto the foam so that I can get them in the right place so that they are layered behind the photo. Just using, so that the adhesive foam is only adhesive on one side, and so I'm just using my tape runner to adhere that down onto the page. This is another one that has two that are adhered directly onto the foam before I place it down. Otherwise, I don't want to have to tear things off my strip, so I'm just making sure that everything is in the right place before I stick it down onto the paper. Now I did want to add this little wood veneer heart that says dog love. I'm going to add that with a little bit of foam too, because it's sitting half on the photo and half off. The half of the heart that is off the photo is going to be lower than the half that is on. So if I add a tiny little bit of foam behind there, make sure everything is nice and level. So I want to add my title kind of strip up here. I'm going to add just a little bit of adhesive down here, and I'm hanging it so it's a little bit off the edge of the page, and then I'm going to go ahead and stitch that on with my sewing machine, again just to bring that texture of the stitching up to the top. Now that little heart piece might be the one bit that is actually on the sketch that I've used in the right place, the right piece in the right place. And it did just to add like kind of an extra little layer up there before I go ahead and start stamping my title. Now I'm stamping that title in the Chloe alphabet. I decided to use the lowercase letters. Again, in the sketch, the title's in capitals, but I decided to go completely lowercase just to add a little bit of contrast with that XOXO. So it's a smaller title adding to that cluster. I kind of wanted to make it as small as possible. And I am stamping it in black. I haven't got a whole lot of black going on in this layout, but my photos have quite dark pieces in them. So to sort of tie it all together, I have stamped in black. Just it gives me kind of three darker points on the layout. So again, it's just a little bit of balance. And then I'm going to sprinkle a few of these puffy hearts. I've got a brand new sheet of puffy heart stickers, love. So I'm going to add a few of those on here. This is kind of in place of the butterflies that are on the sketch. I'd much prefer the puffy hearts, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm adding one near my wood veneer, a couple down in my second photo, and one up in my little title cluster. Now the sketch also calls for splatters, and you know how I feel about splatters. I'm really loving how this layout's going. I don't want to ruin it with splatters, so instead I grab a gel pen and I'm just going to fake my splatters, just randomly drawing a few little dots and spots here and there and everywhere. Some of them I make a little bit larger, some of them are a bit smaller. It by far is my favorite way to add splatters without any risk of ruining your layout. And that is it. That is all done. So like I said, if you want a copy of this sketch for yourself or some more detailed photos from this layout, I will leave the link to the blog post down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.